Hello everyone, my name is Denise and today I'll be talking about borderline personality disorder and self-harm. So first, let's define what borderline personality disorder is. The DSM defines it as a fear of abandonment, unstable relationships, identity disturbance, impulsivity, self-destructiveness, mood swings, chronic emptiness, uncontrolled anger, paranoia or dissociation. So I will be using transactional analysis, in short TA, to describe number 5, self-harm and self-destructiveness to you, to explain why it happens. Okay, for that I need to explain one TA term, which is stroke. What is a stroke? Okay, first let's think about babies in the orphanage. It was found that if you just change the diapers and give the milk, a lot of babies die. But if every day the caregivers pick up the baby and stroke them on their backs, many of them survive. This is evidence that as humans, we don't only need food and water and our basic needs, we also need strokes. We need love and affection, we need strokes. So that's where the word stroke came from. So now talking about another experiment, I'm not sure if it really is like this, but I heard about this from my lecturer. I didn't read the actual paper and I might have modified it a little in my head, so please pardon me and just listen to it as a story to illustrate a point. Okay, there are 3 cages, 1 cage of rats, 3 cages of rats. In the very first cage, you provide them with food and water. On top of that, a lot of positive strokes. You go to them, you talk to them nicely and you stroke them. In the second cage, you give them negative strokes, which are electric shocks sporadically, and as well as food and water. And the third cage, just food and water and nothing else. So the study showed that those in the third cage died the fastest and they didn't grow very well. The first 2 cages were equally robust. They lived and they grew well. So what this proves is that the rats, and as us humans, we also need strokes. And if we can't get it positively, negative strokes are still better than no strokes. Okay? So you realize that this makes sense, that if you have a young child and the young child tries his best to get positive strokes, right? But he fails, he'll eventually try to get negative strokes. Like I have a son, he's 5, and if he's very good, after he eats, he washes his hands, put his plate into the sink, and put his clothes in the laundry basket. I might praise him the first 2 or 3 times, and after that I'll forget about it, I'll take it for granted, right? So positive strokes are quite hard to get and they're unreliable because it's very easy to ignore things that are going well. So what is a more reliable source of strokes? A negative behavior, then you get a negative stroke. For example, if it comes to me while I'm making a video and he slaps you on my leg, I'll say, hey, stop it, that's painful. So he receives that as a negative stroke, but that's still better than no stroke because he's getting some attention. So for parents out there, if you notice that your kids are acting out and doing all kinds of bizarre things that are very harmful to themselves, that's also one thing. They're trying to get negative strokes. Okay, this also applies to workplace. If your employee gives you a report and immediately you tell them after a few hours you read that everything and say, oh, good job, I think you did this well, or you can improve a bit on that. So you give them praise and constructive feedback. That is a good positive stroke. Or you say, oh, this really sucks, you're really stupid, repeat it. Oh, that's painful, or that's cold. But that's a very strong negative stroke, so it's good as well. They sort of like it. But if you just, this is your report, you put it on the table and 3 months later still no news, no response, that's no stroke. Okay, that particular employee will languish and eventually resign, because that's the worst. Resembles the rats in the third cage. They will feel very neglected and they cannot survive in the workplace like that. Okay, so one way of describing borderline PD would be people with needs, with extraordinary needs for strokes. Like they need a very big stroke appetite. I would say that borderline traits, we all have them, but we're on a kind of a spectrum. If you're on the lower end, you need less strokes. Maybe let's give some arbitrary numbers, 20 strokes. But if you're on the higher end of the spectrum, the borderline trait spectrum, then you would have maybe 200 strokes a day. You get that appetite. Like, you're wondering, where does this huge appetite for strokes come from? Okay, I tell you where it comes from. Like when they were young, they were repeatedly abused. Maybe physically, maybe sexually, maybe verbally abused. So imagine a small child, 5-6 years old, being repeatedly beaten or sexually abused. That is at that time, as they experience it, so vulnerable, so scared. There's a great volume of negative strokes. So 200 strokes. So every single day or every few days they experience that 200 strokes. So that really expands their appetite for strokes. So now if you fast forward to the modern day when they're already adults, how does that present itself? Because they have this great stroke volume, right? If they want to get it positively, it's very hard. The only thing in this world that is non-spiritual that can possibly provide it would be drugs. They take that drugs, the ecstasy, and then get a euphoric feeling. So that would be a strong positive strokes. But drugs are not easy to come by, and they are, after a while, you languish very quickly, right? So no, not only drugs, they will rely on negative strokes that they get from playing games with people. Okay, so one of the games they play would be to hurt themselves, right? Or stage a suicide attempt. So let's say in terms of a suicide attempt, right? If I try to kill myself, usually my family members will rush in to try to rescue me, and I get a lot of attention. I get a lot of stroke. That's a big stroke, stroke coming in, right? But sometimes I'm ignored. But that's also a big stroke, because they say, oh, that's evidence you don't love me. Oh, the pain. Oh, I'm languishing. It's so painful. Nobody cares about me. Okay, that is a very strong stroke coming in, and it might be even playing out in your own fantasy world. Maybe they do care, they know they would have helped, but you purposely stage it in a way that they will not know. So that applies for self-harm as well. If you are a person who cuts in a very visible place, your loved ones would notice it immediately, right? Within a few days, you'll notice it, and then they will do something about it. They bring you to see the psychiatrist, to see the counselor, to get some help. Suddenly, everybody's attention is on you. You get lots of stroke. So that's a lower level game, I would say a second degree game. But sometimes it gets more advanced, like a third degree game, that they start to cut higher up on their hands, their arms. They start to cut on their inner thighs, in their waist, under their clothes, where nobody can see. So, or like, I know this girl should just pop the Panadol a few a day, and then in the rest surreptitious way, so nobody knows. And the back of her mind, the message will be, nobody cares about me, nobody loves me. I'm killing myself here, but nobody knows, nobody loves me. They only discover when I'm finally dead, or when I finally bleed out, or when I finally died of Panadol poisoning, because that's what's going on in their mind. So that is a very strong stroke. Okay, let's move on to what are the treatment solutions, treatment options. Okay, you need essentially to transition from this very dramatic, high stroke volume life to a very stable life that is less drama. Okay, super drama life to low drama life, super scripty and gamey life to a less gamey, authentic life that's filled with intimacy. So the first thing would be teach them to learn how to get their strokes directly. If what they want is attention from the mother, then you arrange, you ask for it, like mommy, can we go to the theme park this weekend? I want to spend time with you, I miss you. There's so much I want to tell you about. Shall we go to the zoo? Shall we pick up a hobby together? Let's learn how to play crossword puzzles. How about let's read this book together, and then we can discuss it. So you ask for your strokes positively, directly, through intimacy. That's one way to solve it. And the second way would be to help them to get strokes from other areas. Maybe the relationship with their mom is really impossible to help, or at least not in the short run. So you try to get other relationships that can meet that stroke need, like put them in a big support group, okay, and go for regular counseling. So that would be a great way to fix that. But remember, the high drama life is a very exhilarating feeling, and it's just very fun and exciting in a way compared to the low drama life. Let me quote from this book, page 276. Stan Williams has drawn attention to an additional catcher. Game strokes are plentiful and intense. By contrast, the strokes we get from game-free living are relatively mild, and sometimes may not be in such reliable supply. For sure, these new strokes are straight ones instead of involving discounts. But as we know, the stroke-hungry child is more concerned with quantity than quality. There is no way around this other than to take time to convince yourself in child that the new stroke supply is acceptable and is going to last. During this transition period, it may be a good idea to set up extra sources of strokes that you can draw on to tide you over. This is one way in which the support of a group can help personal change. Yeah, so like I mentioned just now, get group therapy, individual therapy, find other ways to get the stroke supply met, and mostly in positive ways, not negative ways. Okay, so pitfalls. One of the problems are that they love to play games so much that the patients might want to play games with the counselor. You set the counselor up to be usually the rescuer, so it can take this form. Like a lady might come to me and tell me, "Oh, tonight I'm going to this man's house. You know, we're going to take some drinks. I know this man is kind of promiscuous, so we're going to Netflix and chill. So is it a good idea, Denise? Is it a good idea, Denise? Should I do it?" So then you might be, well, the knee-jerk reaction would be, "Don't do that." Probably end up taking alcohol and drugs. You might even have unprotected sex. Don't do that. It's dangerous for you. You never know. You might get hurt in the process. That would be the knee-jerk, right? But then that sets her up to be the victim, that man the potential persecutor, and I'm the rescuer. So that is a game. So she might get addicted to this exhilaration that Denise cares about her. Then she'll keep on setting herself up for this kind of very dangerous situations. So one way to break it is to offer options. It's like, okay, hi dear, I know that you want to do that tonight, but you have options. The first option is to go, but the risk is high, right? Or like ask, what is the risk of having of taking drugs and having sex tonight? What is the risk of that? Is that what you want? Okay, or you can choose not to do that, but then there will be a empty space for strokes tonight. How are you going to get that high stroke volume met in another more healthy way? No, maybe you can watch a movie. You can meet up with your friends and have a good chit chat. Instead of drinking alcohol, you all have, although this is not so healthy, you know, but I would still prefer that to having the other option, right? Eat some unhealthy snacks, and then you know, have some happy, funny, laughy chit chat with your girlfriends. So that's an option, but it is your choice. It is your life. I can't make this decision for you, and I don't want to, because then you need me all the time. So you're an adult. Go and evaluate yourself and make up your own mind. So offer these options, break up the game. Okay, so I hope this video has been helpful to you, and it really helped me if you can press the subscribe button and share it with your friends. Thank you so much, and God bless.